Hi everyone, my name is John. Welcome back to my channel. I have another book review for you. As you probably know, if you followed me for a while, I've been a co-host of an event called Historathon since 2023, and this book somehow sort of slipped through my fingers when I was trying to review everything. So this is from quarter three of the first year of Historathon, which was 2023. And this is Michael Massey's Fatal Discord, Erasmus, Luther, and the Fight for the Western Mind. Michael Massey is best known probably for writing about current events and international affairs. He's an international affairs journalist, which makes him a sort of unusual candidate to take up the ideas of two of the intellectual giants of the 16th century. So historically, I've been sort of disappointed with books by journalists about history, especially because they tend to the superficial and the perfunctory instead of detailed analysis that sheds light on what's actually going on. And all I have to say is I'm really, really glad that I gave myself another chance, because this ended up being, had I made a best of list for 2023, I didn't do that, but had I done it, this probably would have been the best book I read in 2023. In it, Massey takes up the lives and ideas of two men, Desiderius Erasmus and Martin Luther, and they're very, very widely divergent ideas about salvation, about human will, biblical exegesis, and the future of the Christian church in the wake of the Reformation, which Martin Luther sort of kicked off. Massey's book is a study in stark contrasts as told through a dual biography that alternates between chapters about Erasmus and Luther, going from their early lives to their deaths. Both men agreed that the late medieval church was in a state of disrepair and corruption, and that reform was badly needed. After this point that they initially agreed on, and nothing but discord, as the title tells you, followed. For example, for Erasmus, good works were necessary. They were a hallmark of a pious Christian. For Luther, they were dangerous spiritual virtue signaling that gave false comfort. Erasmus embodied the finest of Renaissance humanist tradition, most certainly a reflection of his thoughtful and searching inward person, the kind of inward person that he was. He was also really worldly and gregarious and outgoing, funny, by the way. If you read In Praise of Folly, he's a pretty funny writer. One of the best writers of his time, actually. Luther was also a gifted writer, but gifted in a very, very different way. His style couldn't have been any more different. Luther's Jeremiads were loud and brash and dismissive of his opponents and vituperative and eager to call nearly anyone who disagreed with him a tool of Satan. His virulent anti-Semitism also left an indelible mark on the next 5 centuries of Protestant theology. Without getting too into the weeds about the book's overall arch, one of the fundamental disagreements between Erasmus and Luther was whether there should be dialogue between believers and whether there should be more of an embrace or a rejection of textual ambiguity and textual interpretation. For Erasmus, of course, there should be, and Luther said no. Was it permissible for people to break away from the church in schism in pursuit of doctrinal purity. For Erasmus, no. For Luther, who obviously gave his name to another brand of Christianity entirely when he did exactly that, yes. Should the emphasis of Christianity be on the moral, virtue, and reason and free will of this world, or the salvation and redemption of the next? For Erasmus, it's virtue, reason, and free will. For Luther, it is salvation and redemption in the next life. So these are just a few of the the major disagreements that are teased out over the length of the book. By the way, I know this is going to put some people off. Okay? But let me tell you, if you're interested in the subject, it is. Let me get you a link here. With notes and everything, we're looking at just under 1,000 pages. But the readable text is 820. Okay, so it's long. It's also just spectacularly well done. It's kind of a one-volume education in the ideas that gave birth to the Protestant Reformation, through the lens of two people who had very, very different conceptions of where they wanted it to go. And the great thing is that it's a very low barrier when it comes to Christian theology or philosophy. You don't have to know anything about that stuff to be able to appreciate the ideas at the level that he's talking about them. Nevertheless, he doesn't talk about them like you're a child. So he presents them in an intelligent way, but nevertheless at a very accessible level. Just a really immersive, great dual biography. Really, really highly suggest this if you're interested in the study of the Reformation, through two fascinating lives of people who spent their lives trying to talk about what they wanted to make out of it. By the way, if this does interest you, also go for another book I've also reviewed on this channel. It's a book by Andrew Pettigrew called Brand Luther. And that's also a fascinating book, which I also read in 2023, I think, that talks about how Luther turned his small town, the small town of Wittenberg, into a publishing hub while he was at the same time leveraging one of the most consequential pieces of technology in human history, the printing press. Also, his relationships with other scholars and how he wrote, how he sort of used his work as he's very, very good at being his own publicist. Let's just put it that way. So this gives the sort of story behind the ideas, and Brand Luther tells you all about how Luther presented his material in a way that would make it accessible to a very broad audience. Because, after all, he's interested in gaining converts to his side to sort of question the church and break away from it. So, like I said, probably the best book I read in 2023, easily a 5 stars, good read review, which I already gave it. Fatal Discord by Michael Massey, Erasmus, Luther, and The Fight for the Western Mind. Spectacularly good. Get your hands on it, especially if you see it at a decent price. I will talk to you later. Bye.